This second video of Chapter 3 is going to focus on a couple of different things, including the basic structures that are associated with bacterial cells, which are prokaryotes, and talk about kind of an overview of the eukaryotic cell as well. So remember, prokaryotes, some of their important features. I'm going to be abbreviating here to save some time. Prokaryotes have no nucleus and no organelles. Okay, huge. Remember this. Okay, so what do prokaryotes have? So we're going to use a bacteria as an example. So I'm just going to kind of use the picture more of a guide. Okay, so let's start with the stringy things that are external to the cell. That means they're outside of the cell, and that is flagella. Flagella is a form of motility. These are how bacterial cells can get around in an environment. Okay, and flagella can be found in different places on a bacterial cell. There's not always a bunch of them at one end. Some bacteria are covered in them. Some of them have flagella at both ends. Some bacteria don't even have flagella. Okay, so this is an accessory. All right, so now working our way inwards. This green outer layer is going to be the capsule, and this is a sugary layer. It's very, very sticky. It allows bacteria to stick to surfaces, to stick to one another and form little communities, but it's also a virulence factor. So what on earth is that? Well, a lot of bacteria that make us sick, those are called pathogens. And a lot of pathogens have a capsule because since this capsule is so sticky, it's hard for some of our immune cells to be able to round up these bacteria and digest them to eliminate them from our bodies. So because the capsule is so sticky, our immune cells have a hard time holding on to them and internalizing them so that those bacteria can be broken down. So a virulence factor is a strategy that pathogens use to sneak around our immune cells. All right, working our way inwards. Next is the cell wall. Okay, now for bacteria, it's made up of a structure called peptidoglycan. And basically, the cell wall is going to give a lot of structural support for the cell. All right, going inwards is the cell membrane. Okay, that's always the edge of the cell and the border. It's going to help regulate what can go into the cell and leave the cell. We're going to talk a lot about the cell membrane when we get to our eukaryotes, because the cell wall of a bacteria is very similar to the cell wall of a eukaryote. All right, inside what you see, we're now inside the cell. So you see this blue swirly stuff. That is where their DNA is. Now notice it doesn't have its own room or compartment, but all the DNA does hang out together. So we call that the nucleoid. Okay, make note, it looks a lot like the word nucleus, so don't get tricked on a test. Okay, prokaryotes have a nucleoid. It's just a region where all the DNA is found. And bacterial DNA is double-stranded, just like ours, but they have a circular chromosome, whereas eukaryotes do not. All right. And then inside here, all this space in here, okay, just all over. I'm not going to color the whole picture, but all inside here is this, it's called the cytoplasm. It's just the space inside the cell. But what's also in the cytoplasm is the cytosol, and that's a jelly-like fluid that kind of holds up the DNA. If you think of like a pool, okay, so the DNA and these little ribosomes, those protein-making machines, are kind of floating in it, just like you think of a pool, how we can all float on like a raft, right? So in this analogy, the cytosol would be like the water that's kind of holding up the floaties, okay? And then again, ribosomes are protein-making machines. All right, so eukaryotic cells, the big difference, we're going to look at animal cells and plant cells. Okay, now there's a lot of things in common. If you just kind of glance at this picture, you'll see a lot of similar things. So again, both of these are eukaryotic, so they have a nucleus and they have organelles. But there tends to be some slight differences on what organelles they have. So we're going to talk about each one in depth later, but for right now, know that plants have a central vacuole, and this is responsible for storing a lot of water that plants may need. And they also have chloroplasts. And chloroplasts are where photosynthesis is going to happen. This is how plants make the food they need, right? Because they're stuck in the ground. They can't just get up and go to Wendy's whenever they're hungry. They have to make their own food. And plants make their own food by photosynthesis. And that occurs in these little organs called the chloroplast. Now, if you look over to the left on the animal cell, you don't see a big central vacuole and you don't see chloroplast. So it has a big difference between the two. An additional big difference is that plants have an extra outer layer called the cell wall. And this cell wall is made up of the sugar, or the carbohydrate, cellulose. And this helps plants be really, really strong and durable, right? Imagine a storm. These plants are getting pelted with water and thrown around in wind, and they have to be able to survive that. So they have this really strong cell wall made up of cellulose, and animals do not have that. All right, that's the end of this video.